Take a look at the contents of the room around you. Can you find the item that uses diesel fuel? I'm going to give you a hint. Everything. Everything in the room around you uses diesel fuel because no matter what it is, everything that you wear, everything you eat, everything you use, you consume, you watch, whatever, has some input cost of diesel because it has all gone on a truck or on a ship or been grown at a farm. Everything. Everything uses diesel fuel. It is so important. I've heard it described as the workhorse of our economy. And it's important because the Northeast United States is facing a diesel shortage, and it is coming up real fast right now. And today we got news from our fearless leaders in Washington. Their big plan is to tap into our nation's reserves in order to ease this supply crunch. What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and we are going to shrink my big, fat melon of a head and take a look at this article in Reuters today. White House weighs use of emergency diesel reserve to ease supply crunch. And I got to send a shout out to my man Eric from Sage News. He called this weeks ago saying there was a diesel shortage coming, and boy is it coming up fast. The White House is weighing an emergency declaration to release diesel from a rarely used stockpile in a bid to address a major supply crunch and blunt rising prices, an administration official said on Monday. U.S. President Joe Biden has declared that tackling inflation and high gas prices is the priority of his administration ahead of congressional elections in November. Diesel is essential for the U.S. economy, powering farms and construction sector along with trucks, trains, and boats to help move goods. Rising diesel prices will help drive up inflation, which has hit 40-year highs. The White House is considering tapping the Northeast Home Heating Oil Reserve, created in 2000 to help with supply issues and used only once in 2012 in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. The impact from such a release would be limited by the relatively small size of the reserve, which only contains 1 million barrels of diesel. Now, folks, I need you to understand what's going on here, all right? This emergency fuel supply was created in 2000 in order to cushion the Northeast against an emergency that disrupted fuel supplies for home heating. This reserve is not meant to buy politicians time to not get their butts kicked in midterm elections. This is meant to keep people in the Northeast from freezing to death when a storm hits. And again, the only time this was ever used was in 2012 after Hurricane Sandy hit the Northeast. And I can tell you, 2012 and Hurricane Sandy was a miserable experience. I went through it at the Jersey Shore. People were in danger of freezing to death after that storm hit, but thankfully we had this fuel reserve because all the refineries in the Northeast were knocked out by that storm. So we tapped into that reserve to supply emergency home heating oil. I want to emphasize home heating oil. This is not to drive truck. This is to keep us from freezing to death. And our politicians are using it to bring down fuel prices just a little bit so they can poll just a little bit better ahead of the midterms and hopefully not lose control of the House of Representatives. Now, while all the talking heads in the press are repeating these political talking points that it's the Putin price hike or it's because of COVID or it's because of this, no. What is going on with diesel markets right now is because the United States and the entire Western world is criminally negligent in maintaining its energy infrastructure. And that stems from the ESG movement, otherwise known as how wealthy liberal Wall Street types use your money and my money to blackmail banks into denying capital to companies that would use capital to develop energy infrastructure because they want to impose their will and their ideology on everyone. And again, I just want to emphasize, if you have money in a BlackRock fund or if you have money in a Vanguard fund, they are using your wealth to accomplish this. And what we have right now going on around the world, this food shortage, this fuel shortage, this all stems from the fact that Europe cannot make its own gas. Europe can't make its own fertilizer because they have not developed their own energy. They are dependent on insecure supplies of energy, whether it be from the Middle East or from Vladimir Putin. It doesn't matter. They do not have energy security. And so when energy gets scarce for whatever reason, they cannot absorb that impact. Now, the United States is making up that gap somewhat. We are running our refineries, what few refineries we have left in this country, overtime to try to ship gasoline and jet fuel and diesel back to Europe and even to South America because they don't have enough of their own. That's also driving up prices here in the States, and that's causing shortages here in the States. And while the politicians and the talking heads in the press are going to tell you that this is a problem of price gougers and that it's because these oil companies are making record profits and that's why nobody can afford it, understand that is a totally bunk argument. Look at this chart of cracking profits. This is from Javier Blas's article in Bloomberg dated May 4th. All right, this is the profit made for refining a barrel of oil into diesel. And right now, the cracking profits for making diesel is almost $80 a barrel. All right, it has absolutely gone through the roof. Trust me, these refiners are making diesel as fast as they possibly can because they are making a fortune doing it. There is nobody who is not making diesel right now who can make diesel right now because they are making buku bucks cracking oil and making diesel. This is not a problem of price gouging. This is not a problem of Russia's invasion in Ukraine. This is a problem of we don't have enough refining capacity to make enough diesel. And Europe can't run their refining capacity because it's too expensive because they don't have any energy anymore. This is the same story. What is going on here with this diesel shortage? This is the same thing as the fertilizer shortage. This is ESG mandates have crippled energy infrastructure, and pretty soon we're not going to be able to get anything because of it. Because everything, I mean everything on the shelf has some diesel input cost. So remember this, while the global elites are knobbing hobs over in Switzerland this week after taking their private jets to those airfields, all right, they're sitting down eating dinners that are not made of lentils and bugs like they want us to eat, that it is ESG mandates that have created this problem. And we are not going to be able to solve this problem until adults are put back in charge of energy policy. We need a massive build out of energy infrastructure in the US and in Europe. We need to build pipelines. We need to build wells. We need to build refineries. We need to build fertilizer plants. We cannot rely on hostile nations for supplies that we vitally need because this is the end result. I just want to mention that this all hits right as the peak summer driving season is about to start here in the United States. And even if we get through this summer driving season, let's say all of this goes really well. Well, what happens if we don't have that diesel reserve and another storm hits the Northeast? Or what happens to people's home heating bills if we don't have that cushion come winter? The politicians are playing games with people's lives. They are putting politics ahead of sound judgment. And everyday people, you and me, we are going to pay the price for it. Call them out on this. Share this video. Use the hashtag ESGKills because that is exactly what's going on. There are food riots breaking out around the world. There are wars breaking out. Because politicians who sip champagne at fancy dinners in Davos are putting their ideology ahead of your well-being. And if you want to know a little bit more about what's going on in this diesel shortage, you can check out this video that I did with Eric from Sage News about what's causing it. Till next time, live small and dream big.